What is your name?
Henry Garza. I was born in Somerset, Texas in August 18, 1932. We were born on a farm. My dad was a farmer and a carpenter. He was a jack of all trades. He made metal water tanks. He could do anything.
And how many were in your family?
9.
9.
He had 2 girls and the rest of boys.
How many went into the military?
My oldest brother was in the Air Force. Then Richard was in the Navy. Joe was in the Army. And then I was in the Army. And Charlie was in the Air Force. Now the other 2 young ones were too young at the time, so they didn't serve. At the auditorium, they called us, I was in about the 2nd grade, and they called us to the auditorium of the speech that President Roosevelt said. I remember that. We were just students, in the auditorium here at Somerset. They called everybody. Bill James was the superintendent, or was he? No, he was somebody else. Anyway, they called everybody in there to listen to the speech about Mr. Roosevelt's speech.
What did you think about it?
Well, since I was a little kid, it was just well, I'd heard, because my dad's brother was in World War I. See, they were worried about them being in the service and all that during the war. In Somerset, here in Somerset High School.
And you graduated when?
In 1951.
Okay. Were you drafted?
Yes. The way it started, we had a coach in Somerset, Coach Fay Martin, and he belonged to the Army National Guard. So he recruited a whole bunch of us from Somerset to the National Guard in San Antonio. See, when they first started, the National Guard hadn't started yet. And I was there until, you enlisted like an army, and you had a time you could re-enlist. So I didn't re-enlist because the Korean War had already started. So I did not re-enlist. After that, I received that letter from President Harry Truman who was saying, "Greetings, the friends and neighbors have decided that you should go and protect the country." I was drafted in 52 and taken to Fort St. Houston where they give you a $20 bill and you get a haircut and say you can do that. Next house and everything. And then I was sent to basic training in Fort Bliss, El Paso. So your regular training they have, you march and nothing. And then the advanced training is your military occupation is going to be. So I got into a school that was radar and radar systems maintenance. So I used to work on early warning radar systems. Then when I finished it, they sent me to Okinawa. It was a bus. We went from San Antonio to San Francisco. We took a ship. It took 17 days. The USS Breckenridge.
Oh.
It was a troop ship. And there was, Air Force, Army, and Navy people because the Korean War is still going on. So halfway down there, the Korean War was over. So that's why I didn't get to go to Korea. They sent me to Okinawa.
What division?
Anti-aircraft division. On a base, it's called ACNW, Aircraft Control and Warning, where you had airplanes coming in and leaving. We could see the blimps on the radar at the east side, China Sea, where they'd be coming in and then turn back. Because, the Korean War was helped by the Chinese. The Okinawans are the Japanese part of Japan. At that time, it belonged to the United States because after the war, they had a United States government. And when I was there, they gave it back to Japan. And the Japanese used to call them the country cousins. the Okinawa people.
Did they?
And when I was still in Okinawa, like I said, the Army loaned a radar set to the Air Force, and they sent me to the Air Force to do maintenance on it, to the little island at 21. Army had loaned the Air Force a radar set, and they sent me out there to do maintenance on it. There was a little island, it was only 9 miles around, and just like a dip. They had a radar set, and they said, I just took maintenance on it.
Okay.
No, you were 124-hour call, you know, if the system went down, you had to go out there and fix it. And, no matter the hour, always on call. And of course the food is better than the Army food, Air Force.
The food was good there?
Oh yes. I don't know, the Air Force always has better food than the Army, I don't know why. Well, the weather was summer all year long. It never got cold.
Any hurricanes or?
Oh yes, we had typhoons. We got on, we went to a couple of typhoons. The Army had tile barracks, and we would, you know, the typhoons would crack them and everything, so we'd go to the village, and they had those grass huts, and the hurricane wouldn't do anything to them. Like I said, they did a lot of straw and all that, so they don't crack or they don't destroy. Well, the barracks were, you know, concrete barracks. No, they had cots, you know, regular cots with mattresses. Well, they were real friendly. Rice paddies, everything. They even make rice wine on the sake.
Really?
Rice wine.
What did they put it in?
Well, they make it in, one in bottles, but they make, you don't make it in big wooden vats. But they use rice to ferment it. Just get it.
Did you ever taste any?
Oh yes. I still have a bottle at home because I buy it at HEB, sake, Japanese sake. January 53 to December 54.
What ship did you go home on?
The same one that I went over, came back on the same USS Breckenridge. On the way out and the way back.
What was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. Because there was about 5,000 troops where we were going because we had Army, Air Force, Navy, because during the war. On the way back, just civilians. You know, everybody was. I mean, we were still military, but we were on the way home. Back to San Francisco and then to Fort Bliss and then San Antonio. Then when my enlistment was over, so my discharge, they discharged me in San Francisco. And it was on 24th of December of 1954, Christmas Eve, I got discharged. So we got on a 12-deal car with our other people that retired all the way to San Antonio. And they took me right in front of my brother's house on Commerce Street. So they called Mom and Dad in Somerset, so they went pick me up. And then, you know, came back to Somerset. Well, I went back to work. I was working at Kelly Air Force Base when I was drafted. And I had to resign because they didn't have reemployment rights. When I came back from Okinawa, they had passed reemployment rights, so I got my job back. My job at that time was an Aircraft Electrician Apprentice. When I got back, I was still working on the line, aircraft line. And then when I was training programmer, it was a different building, a different unit. And I finished that. Then I started working on the Aircraft Electrician on B-52s, the aircraft. And I worked on the B model, C, D, E, F, and G model. And the H was, they were making in Wichita, Kansas, so they submitted school to Wichita, Kansas to learn their electrical system. And when I came back, I made a real good score on the JD test, so I came out on a profile to become a computer programmer. And I took that, getting out of, working out on the line, it's all his job and everything.
Where did you take that training?
At Kelly Air Force Base, same place, because The training was a trainee for computer programmers. And he wouldn't take, we had punch cards at the time, and the system would only take tapes. So they had smaller computers converting cards to tape. They were all, had some, and the more we stayed out there, smaller they kept getting, smaller. Now there's more memory in a cell phone than those big computers. I'm the one that used the GI Bill to get flying lessons. Well, after the Korean War, when I got my GI Bill, and I did get a pilot license. And did that until I got married, and then we got grounded. It was a small airplanes. Yes. The school was Air Academy, and they teach you how to. And you fly, got skiing, everywhere all over. Right after we got married, I think. I'm ready to go over the housework. Because I go to Somerset, it was small, small aircraft. Single engine line. In 1958 is when me and Irene got married.
Okay.
And we've been married since 1958.
61 years.
What date were you married?
June 1st.
June 1st, 1958?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Kathleen Elizabeth Garza, then it's Henry L. Garza, then it's John Martin Garza, then Gary Lee Garza. And Kathy lives in San Antonio, Henry L. lives in Lido, John lives in Somerset, Gary lives in McKinney, Texas, because he works in Dallas, but he lives in McKinney.
Did any of your children serve?
John.
He was in there 4 years. He was stationed in England. Yes. When I was still working, the Argentine Air Force needed someone to convert their computer system, the punch card system to computers. So they sent 3 of us to Buenas Aires, Argentina. And when we got there, since we were Spanish, but coming from the United States, we got there, you all speak Castilian Spanish, whoever spoke French. So we went to Argentina. I was there for how many months? A few months. She stayed home.
3 months, I think. Yeah.
I called home by radio. Oh, there's restaurants. You go to a restaurant, the first thing you do, they put you a pitcher of wine in still water. And the steaks were good and cheap because they eat a lot of beef. They raise a lot of beef in Argentina. Well, back to work because I went on temporary duty. Disneyland in California, I went to Disney World in Florida, and went to visit my brother that lived in Wyoming. And we traveled a lot. Well, I had a GMC truck with a camper in the back. And I bought the GMC truck for $2,065. So what are they selling for now? I had a camper. 1987 from Kelly Air Force Base. Well, it was 36 years, but I had $3,000 sick leave, so they gave me another year and a half. So my annuity is based on 38 years. I never got sick but one time.
Well, we have 5 grandkids and 2 great-grandkids.
We will have great grandchildren too.
Oh.
We talked to our granddaughter in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
They're in Germany, stationed in Germany. Her husband is a military lieutenant colonel. Kaiserslautern, Germany. It's Ramstein Air Force Base, but he's in the army.
Plastic surgeon, okay.
And they're going to come in August to Fort Hood, Texas. So they've been a lot closer. We went to visit them in Germany. It's an 11-hour flight. Oh, you get tired. It was started by World War One veterans. The American Legion post-World War III was started in 1921 by World War One veterans. Well, they used to meet at the Somerset had like a little building they made up there and they had a meetings there. Then they bought a barracks from Dodgefield. They were tearing those down. The first building was a barracks. Well, they bought the building and they brought it from Dodgefield. Dodgefield was close to what's in. Oh, you have to fix the roof because the other people in the building would leak. You could see. I was commander there twice. I've been about 52 years and 56 years. I held almost every post. On Somerset Road, and not too far, so gone towards the island. And then my grandma gave my mother 8 acres. So my dad built a house. That was on Benton City Road, and we lived there until they passed away. And I didn't know that my dad did. I never did learn how.
You never learned how.
I think we had one.
Yeah, we had a good childhood in this farm. It's only, from here it's only about, it's on Benton City Road. We had one that was a pet that we raised, and then my kids wouldn't eat the meat. We took it to the butcher. What was the name of the pet? Jackie? No, Jackie?
Jackie.
Jackie. I had a name for it.
Jackie?
Jackie.
And they wouldn't eat the meat. We took it to the post to have it,
I have to give it away.
slaughtered and summer, my dad would, when he would plant broom corn, I don't even know that they make brooms out of that. But we would work on it because when the worker with the itch a lot of it, so he would hire people to hold that broom corn. It grows like corn, but it's got all those strands, when you put it, when it gets hard, dries, it creates a lot of stuff that itches. When they're threshing it, they have to get all the seeds out before they sell it to the broom companies that make brooms. And that's what you do. We did plant corn and cows. He had 17 cows, and my mother and them would make cheese, and they would sell it in San Antonio, cream cheese. The mold, he made a mold of what that my dad did. He'd make it, and sell them for a quarter, take it downtown. So we had a truck.
You had a truck. Oh, good.
Go to, we would tell them to market in San Antonio, they would buy them.
So
One of my great-great-great-grandfathers to go out to Mexico to build a cathedral. He was an architect. Martin Casillas from Almenda, Spain, in the year 1500 so. He was sent by the King of Spain at that time to Guadalajara, Mexico, to build the Cathedral of Guadalajara. And look at a picture of that. My mother was born in Buenas Aires, Texas. Buenas Aires. And my mother's the last one on the family tree. The one, of course, we follow on that one. The Garza crossing, right there's a cemetery. And there's my grandfather, which is my mother's father's buried there, and his father, Santiago Casillas, is buried there.
And they're buried there.
Well, only my grandfather and my great-grandfather. My mother's dad, Antonio Casillas. And my great-grandfather was Santiago Casillas. And my dad was born in Victoria, Texas.
Well, I thank you so much for your service and for sharing with us your story. We just really appreciate it. And thank you both very much.
Okay, thank you.